Good morning. How you doing?
Well, good morning. I'm surprised to see you there.
I
I was
know,
ready to
right?
fly solo. I was,
Oh no,
that was
I'm
great.
I'm coming on. And I just have to say, what would it be? How would it be to have a Thursday live without technical difficulties?
Different.
So today we're having a few struggles. Welcome everybody. I'm Steve. You can just call me Steve. And this is Mark, and you can call him whatever you want.
Pastor, Reverend, Father, um,
His Holiness.
preacher. Ooh, holiness, I like that.
Yeah.
Doubtful that's going to actually hit, but I have had a lot of people call me preacher over the time of my
Well,
ministry,
that's
so
right. That's
kind of
East
goes with
Tennessee
it.
for sure. Yeah, East Tennessee, Southwest
So,
Virginia. That's and I've actually had churches that never bothered to learn my actual name. They just called me preacher. That was
yep.
it. Yeah, and
Why bother? How long are you
yeah,
going to be here? Come on. Yeah, I
right.
had.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. As soon
yeah. I
as we
think I
start
might.
to get to know you, then it's gonna yeah, you're gonna be gone. So I'm not even gonna bother learning your name. Hey, we if we can work this out, we've got a really cool thing happening today. Because if have you ever met Mike Corcoran before? Have you met him?
I have. We are well acquainted, and for those who don't know Mike, this will give you a glimpse into the behind the scenes functioning of the church, the part that so many people are fascinated with, quite frankly, and how we spend a large amount of our money um, taking care of facilities. And good Lord, here in the last 2 years, 3 years, we have spent an outrageous amount of money on our facilities. And I bet people are interested in knowing where that leaves us. How much have we spent? How much does it take to run a church and repair a church this size? And where do we get that money?
And there's all kinds of behind the scenes stuff that I think is it's just interesting. And Mike's hilarious. I'm sorry, I hate to say it out loud, but he's hilarious. And we all one of the things I look forward to every Tuesday morning at staff meeting is just how much laughter there is, because we all we're all comedians, I think.
And if you have any questions about not only the church but Star Trek, the original series, Mike is your go to source of information. It's on the little bit of frightening side, the obsessiveness that he carries with him, and yet in a lovingly engendering way.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to give up on this possibility of firing up that computer in the office next door to you, and I think it's probably a good idea just to I don't know, sit nice and cozy with Mike and you two chat together. And I know you're not really set up for that, but this is what we do, right? This is what we
Pshaw,
said we do.
pshaw.
You
We
can
are
do it.
professionals.
You can
We
scoot
can make that
back.
happen.
I can make it widescreen, and it's gonna be good. It's gonna be fine, and we'll get some
Well,
exciting chemistry going there.
let me go get him if he's next door and doesn't know if this is going to happen. So,
You go get him. I'll take over right now and just say, I always ask Mark what's going on in the church. He doesn't know. He never knows what's going on. I'm the one who knows because I'm the communications guy. So I have to know everything that's going on in the church so it can be adequately communicated. And there was a couple of things we wanted to lift up big time for. Oh, this is good. I'm gonna put myself on the screen so we don't have to watch Mark. Oop, that was the wrong camera. Oh my goodness. I'm failing. I'm failing this assignment terribly. All right, I'm gonna move over here.
camera's right there on that
Uh,
corner.
yeah, there's some things that are going on that are. I don't know if you know, but Easter is on its way, and I want you to make sure that you see the newsletter this week. First things, I want you to make sure you see the electronic version, which will have the entire Easter schedule posted there, because it's a busy week. It's a very busy time, and the ministries are amazing. I have learned from being away from First Church for many years that
Put that in your
there are certain
right.
holidays and certain things that take place that really don't have any meaning to me unless I am at First Church for parts of those things. Christmas
Oh,
is one of those things for sure. The ability uh, to worship together on Christmas Eve during the
good.
during the Advent season. These are, I mean, I can't tell you how much it means to me. And I'm not just saying that. That's the real truth. That is the real, honest to goodness truth. Um, the other thing that we wanted to talk about was Easter visitation. This has been something we have done for years and years and years. A very important part of our ministry in our church. We are a little bit, it had to fall off it had to fall out of the schedule the last couple of years because you may have heard that there's been this disease going around and it, kind of changed the way we do things. But we realized that it's now possible to do this and to return to this tradition, but we kind of realized it a little bit late. So we're doing everything we can to get the word out about Easter visitation. Again, check your first things, check the electronic version, check the website, fumcor.org, and you will see a little blurb there with pretty Easter flowers and so on, and you'll get all the information about that. So I see in my camera view that Mike and Mark are sitting very close together, and I'm just going to switch over to them, okay? And I'm going to get out of the way. So here you go, guys. You there?
Yay, we are indeed. For those of you who do not know, Mike Corcoran, facilities director extraordinaire, Star Trek enthusiast, and that enthusiast is not, I'm fanatic. That's the word I was looking for, fanatic. So that you can quote quotes from Star Trek to him and he'll tell you the episode. For instance, completely unplanned. Let's see. What is the name of the episode where Kirk goes back and saves a woman from gets
City on the Edge of Forever, second season. written by Harlan Ellison, great science fiction writer.
That is my favorite episode. It's really so good. The whole Nazi regime is brought down because Kirk takes one for the team. The reason we wanted to bring Mike on today because we've had this series of expenditures that have popped up over the last several years. That this building, beautiful and magnificent as it is, has really ended up costing us so much money. And that's just the known quantity of what it is. We have over the course of the last few years had to put in live stream equipment. We've had to take care of a variety of issues. In 2019, we had to replace the boilers. That was what was the first step in this conversation about HVAC system. If you imagine, do you happen to know the square footage of the building?
48,000 square feet.
So if you heat and cool a 48,000 square foot building, you can imagine that it's remarkable all that it takes to do that.
And an old building too.
Yeah, old and in need of lots of upkeep, which is why we spend about 17% of our budget for the trustees to keep up with the building. 17% comes in. When we in 2019 had to replace our boilers, that is the warm air side of the HVAC system, it cost us approximately
83 or 84,000.
And we do have some photos we took and I sent to Steve. I don't know if those will be able to pop up, but you have photos of our new boiler system and it's really amazing. And the thing you need to know about that was 2019, 2020. It cost us 80 something thousand, and that was for installation as well as the boilers themselves. But we saw a change in our efficiency. We had old boilers that had been there 20 plus years. What was the change, Mike, from your perspective, looking at the utility costs? What was the change in doing that?
It was around 25, 26,000 the first 3 years of the system. Now, we take into consideration that COVID had shut the building down, but once we got the building operational again, those numbers continue to go down in costs. So we've finally noticed the efficiency of these things. So it was great.
So that was oh my gosh, we had to replace the boilers. and yet we've seen that being paid for over these last few years. For those of you who don't know, in a church, there are three things that you dread happening, building wise. One is to your boiler system to go down. One is your roofing system to go down. You have to replace a roof, especially on a roof like we have. And the other would be the chiller system to go down. The chiller is what provides the cold air for your HVAC system. Mike, what's happened to our chiller in the last year?
Well, in the past few years, it has worn down. It is a large system that's got 4 compressors that are about the size of truck engines. Those have been wearing down slowly. The parts are just wearing down. The parts are slowly burning up. We've been able to nursemaid it the past few years and to keep it running. And every time they'd say, this thing isn't going to last too much longer before you're going to either need an overhaul or a brand new chiller. Well, we're at that point now where we had to do something.
And thus the dilemma. You would think, okay, let's just bite the bullet and purchase a new chiller. That seemed like the path for all of us, because the options were, how much was it going to cost to do the renovation, the rebuilding, the compressors?
The rebuilding is $30,000 to put in 20-year-old rebuilt compressors. And that's just 2 out of 4. So the other 2 are still 20 years old, still have that kind of wear and tear, and the rest of the system. So, and there you go. There's a picture of the chiller. That's the front end of it that you see. Behind that is the 4 compressors.
So 2 of the 4 compressors are now needing to be rebuilt at a cost of $30,000. Well, that seems like a lot. Why don't we go ahead and do that? How much would it cost to replace the entire chiller system?
The entire chiller system, which doesn't exist anymore, it's now a brand new type of system. Those are the boilers you see right there. The new chiller system is about $100,000 just to replace that. So we can't get the old one anymore. Remember, it doesn't exist. The 20 years, they abandoned that style years ago. So now it's a completely different type.
And thus the dilemma. Let's imagine we say, it's going to be $100,000, but this $30,000 rebuilt the compressors. If we just rebuild it, what's the guarantee? How long are we guaranteed that will last?
Well, the new rebuilds will get 5 years out of them. But the problem is, if you take a look at that diagram, is that you've got 2 primaries and 2 slaves, and basically 4 of them work in tandem. When one starts up, it needs help. After some hot running, then it calls on the slave to help it. And then once it overheats and it works itself, it needs a break. So it calls on the next one, compressor 2 and compressor 4. So you need to have 4 working, and we only have 2 right now. And actually, we only have 1 that's working. We've wired it especially so that we can nursemaid it along and limp along until we can get the 2 rebuilds in there.
That so sums up ministry behind the scenes. Well, we've found a workaround to rewire it so that for the moment it's still working. So here's the dilemma. 5 years. This is only guaranteed for 5 years. Do we want to spend $30,000 for 5 years? Or do we want to go ahead and invest $100,000? And I think trustees all said, let's do the $100,000. Let's do that. The next problem, Mike, what's the next problem with saying, let's put in the new chiller system?
The next problem is availability. There was a time when you could order one. The lead time would be probably 2-3 weeks. You'd have it. The guys would adjust their schedule. Not anymore. This new one now is about 32 weeks out, which is a minimum. And they think it might be a little bit longer. So we're pushing 40 weeks and 52 weeks in a year. We're looking at almost a full year, or at least a half a year minimum, before that thing is even available. So it's just not available. And then the price is going up and up and up, 10% every month.
I want you to hear that number. For those of you who are interested in what the pandemic and availability of parts and availability of transportation and all that, this is a perfect example. The $100,000 chiller seems like so much. $100,000 is going up by 10% each month. And that's when you put in an order. And the order, of course, if you order it now, it's 32 weeks, give or at least. Imagine what that's going to be in 2 months from now or 3 months from now.
Yeah, that's the big fear is that some of them, with going up 10%, we've already hit it. Another got one of the 10%
Yeah.
increases already. That's our good price with the 97. That was after one increase we couldn't control. That was just a couple months ago. And now the next one, which will be tomorrow. So fortunately, we bought it in time to save $10,600.
So Judy Smith just jumped on and said, "What did I miss?" I'll tell you exactly what you missed, Judy. In case you didn't know it, we have a problem with our HVAC system. Our chiller, we paid for new boilers a few years ago. Yay, warm in terms of needing warm air, we've got that now. Our cold air, as in air conditioning, as we head into the summer months, our chiller is broken. So we have a short-term solution of rebuilding compressors that only get a 5-year warranty that costs $30,000 or $100,000 rebuild the entire system. Well, let's do the 100,000. Oh no, you can't get that delivered for the minimum of 32 weeks. So our trustees had to make a really difficult choice. They, in the end, decided to take both doors. Which do you want, door A or door B? We'll take doors A and B. So we have actually ordered now the rebuilt compressors to go in at a cost of
$97,000. Oh, $30,000.
$30,000 we're going to spend just to make sure we have air conditioning over these next year or two while we're waiting on the chiller to be delivered, which is a $97,000 cost.
Yeah, and something else that we haven't considered here, and that is that the air conditioning is necessary in this building when you have a pipe organ. And if the temperature and humidity is fluctuating or goes down, that pipe organ goes out of tune. And every time it goes out of tune, what is it, $1,800 to retune it or some number like that? So if you had that happen twice, you're looking at another $3,600. I mean, it's a dominoes, and it's just the nature of the beast.
It's the nature of the beast. And not only the organ, we have 2 programs, First Steps, Child Development Center, and Keystone Adult Daycare. Both of those cannot operate if the temperature rises too high. By state mandate, they have to close if we can't regulate the temperature in the building. So we're not just talking about how we're so worried about have to be cool and comfortable. No, it is state requirement that these things happen for us to continue the ministry. So the short condensed version is we're going to spend $30,000 on having these rebuilt so that we have enough time to put in the chiller. Now, the other thing we haven't talked about, the chiller that we just paid $97,555 for, that doesn't include the cost of installation.
Right.
Now, one of the photos Steve have, if he can put one of those up, you might not have noticed, but on the side of the building between our church and the Lutheran church that is beside us, there's a building there. I don't even know what we call it.
Call it the mechanical building.
The mechanical building. You can't see it, but on the top of that building is where the actual outdoor unit of the chiller exists. It has false walls that build up to make it look a little taller than it really is. What was the problem with the idea of buying a new chiller and placing it there on top of our mechanical building, Mike?
The big concern was that this new chiller weighs 11,800 pounds when it's operating. Okay, that's a heavy unit. The existing unit that's up there now, which is a cooling tower that cools down the water, is only probably 7,000 pounds. So we were concerned: is the building going to hold the new chiller? And we just got word this morning. It looks like it will.
Praise God.
With some modifications.
You had to throw that in.
I had to throw it in. I didn't want them to get too excited, Got to contain ourselves. But these are minor modifications. These are in the structure that it sets on right now. We're going to have to just beef up with I-beams, a couple of more I-beams in there. It's like a big H, big square. We're going to have to now turn it into an H by adding a couple more laterals in there. That's the building right there. The top part is open. It's a second floor. And on that second floor is the cooling tower, which we will take out because we no longer need it, and bring the new chiller in through the top. This is all going to be done with cranes because you just can't pick these things up. You have to pick them up properly and remove them properly.
Otherwise, Mike and I would just do that, but they won't let us.
They won't. I don't know why.
I don't know.
But it's an open area, and it needs to be beefed up. The building structure's great, the floor is great, the ceiling is great, all that's great. Just the unit that's going to sit on top of this frame needs to be beefed up. That probably won't cost much more than what, another 100 or 200,000, Mark.
That was my next question.
Kinda
So
thinking.
our $97,000 chiller, 98 with tax. I'm just kidding, no tax, but $97,555 chiller. The installation cost on that is going to be roughly
55,000.
$55,000 to remove the old cooling tower and put the chiller on there and install it and connect it to our system. So you're looking right now at a cost of about $150,000 by the time you add the rebuilt compressors, the chiller, and the installation, plus a little bit for an architect engineer to tell us that we can do it.
Right.
About $150,000 to make it possible for our ministry to continue going. Now, you might ask yourself, how do you afford $150,000 hit? Well, just so happens that our church family and the leadership of the family many years ago decided, there's going to come a day when boilers need to be replaced, compressors need to be replaced, a roof needs to be replaced, and they started putting in reserve funds for just that situation. Churches, for the most part, are told you want to maintain somewhere between 3 months and 6 months of reserves, so that if, God forbid, something happens so that nobody gave to the church, period, no money coming in, you'd have 3 to 6 months to be able to maintain and function until finances could come back available. Well, we have that in many reserves. So this is going to be paid for out of a trustees reserve for exactly this kind of situation. And it's going to, we just received $237,000. That's what
you had.
What we had in the reserves, $237,000. And we just took the $97,000 out of it. We have some other reserves beyond that. We have $400,000 or so in reserves beyond that trustees reserve. So we still have, this is the good news, because of faithful giving in our congregation and good planning by leadership in the past, we are able to take the hit for the $150,000 and still have what is basically 3 months worth of reserve funds available to us. I cannot celebrate that enough. That's really
huge. That is absolutely huge. People were thinking in the past, and even today we got to be thinking about the future, because at some point we've got the new boiler, we'll have the new chiller. We don't know about the roof.
That's exactly.
I mean, the roof is in pretty good shape, but you don't know what's coming up next. So it's always wise to get that reserve in there and plan for it.
Yeah, like I said, the chiller, the boiler, and your roof are the 3 big things. For us, the roof, just so if you ever take note of it, it's a particular kind of roof, slate, that has a 50-year lifetime. You can usually hold on to them for 50 or 60 years. Well, ours is starting to show some wear and tear. So over the last couple of years, we've been trying to bring in professionals to say, are we in good shape? Is there a problem? And what's been the word from those that have inspected our roof at this point?
Pretty good. We're actually in pretty good shape. Some of you who are used to looking up when you walk, if you take a look at the roof on the north side, we had it cleaned. There was all kinds of algae growing on it, and it gave it some character, but it also created a little sponge area where moisture could collect and then slowly seep in. We discovered a couple of leaks. We had that roof cleaned on the north side, and the roofer, when he came in, he lowered his price from normally a couple of $1,000 to come in to about half that, because he was able to see the problems right away because of that cleaning. So we'd like to have that continue in the rest of the building.
So all this is to say a couple of basic things. One, your giving, so often as a church, it's like your own home budget. Nobody looking at your home knows what you spend on utilities, knows what you spend on upkeep. In a building that is as beautiful, magnificent as ours is, there is a lot that goes into keeping it up. Like I said, 17% of our budget goes to the trustees. That is, they are in charge of the upkeep of the building. These kind of expenses, $150,000, this most recent hit, that's expensive but yet it's the foundation that allows everything to happen. And faithful giving and faithful leadership, that's what makes that possible. So we want to say thank you and celebrate that above all things. That is a great gift that we have the ability to keep functioning. There's some other things that happen unexpectedly that get thrown in there. Let's talk about something that happened a few years ago, Mike, your favorite subject. For those of you who don't know, St. Mary's Catholic Church caused us enormous problems, just enormous problems. There is what do you call a collection of bats? What's the term?
Annoyance.
Annoyance of bats.
No, there's a term.
There is a term. I don't know what it is.
What it is.
Anyway, there were a whole bunch of bats in the St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church. They paid to have the bats removed. You can't kill bats anymore. They're an endangered species. So nobody kills bats. What you do is make it so it's impossible for them to come back into your building. So after they fly away, they can't get back in. It's a lot of work, and the Roman Catholics did that. God bless their souls. Well, guess where the bats decided to roost, to come?
They became Methodists.
We are great at taking Catholics in and teaching them the ways of Jesus. So they all came to our place, and we had a little bit of a problem with bats. Mike, you want to describe some of the problems we had with bats over the last year?
Yeah, bats are a problem, and a big problem. They get into things. They urinate a lot, and they make a mess. And once that stuff is in there, it has contagions in it, they say, that can cause problems. I don't think we ever got to that point, but
no.
the thousand, they said that maybe the Catholic Church had as many as 5,000 bats. When they would come out at nighttime, they said it would just darken the sky like a horror movie. And it would last for 30 or 40 or 50 seconds. And that's what the facilities director told me. So we only had a small percentage of those. Apparently they went to the other churches as well once they were excommunicated. Then after we excommunicated them, they went to the high school. Do you remember that?
I do. I try not to think about it.
That was an expense for the high school, I think, of about $60,000, where we only did about $5,000.
Well, I was going to say, but that was our initial cost. We thought it was going to cost us about $40,000 to get the bats removed. The colony, thank you, Judy, the colony of bats removed. And this is another one of those cases where we need to give credit where credit is due, and that is to Mike. Mike took the joyful task of going. Now imagine all around your building there are entry points for bats. How big is it that you need to worry about the size of a hole that a bat can go through?
About the size of a nickel.
So everywhere around your roof and your eaves where there's a hole the size of a nickel, that had to be filled. And Mike did that. He went around all over the place, hanging off the side of the building, climbing on ladders that were certainly OSHA approved. But and the way you do it apparently is it has something to do with you put a piece of PVC pipe in that's angled down. How does that work, Mike?
Yeah, what it is you close off all the entry points that you see, which we had fun doing. At nighttime, we had to go and do a bat watch. Remember, we were talking about bat watch.
Oh, you and Amelia quite often. Your wife
sit outside in the car and order a pizza and sit in the car, and then we try to count the locations and number of bats coming out. Once I had the locations of them, then when we got the lift, we were able to go up 50, 60, 70 feet in the air, find those locations, seal them up. But we always wanted to leave 2 or 3 locations where they could come out. So there was a tube, it's called a bat excursion tube, I believe. And you fix that to the building and the bats can go out, but they cannot come back in. So early in the morning when they were all returning back to their homes, we would also have a bat watch and we would watch them come in and they would go all over the place trying to get into the building, but they couldn't. So the only place they would go to was where they came out, which were those tubes. And they could not get in those tubes. And then I would watch them. One of them went like 13 or 14 tries before he finally gave up and then just flipped.
Their little bat feet can't crawl up the plastic of the tube.
No.
It's a tragic moment. So the high school received them. Thanks be to Oak Ridge High School that they took from the Catholics to the Methodists to the high school. But that is one of those behind the scenes things that Mike did that we are so very grateful from. And that original cost of $40,000 ish became a cost of around $5.
Yeah,
you said?
it didn't cost us that much because we did the work ourselves.
And by we, he means Mike.
I know.
Let's just face it. I didn't climb one single ladder.
But you did do a morning coffee from the lift.
I did do a morning coffee.
How many of you remember that? That was a great one.
2 people, I would bet. 2 people. That's the kind of behind the scenes stuff that goes on in taking care of this building. Some other things that you might be interested in. What would be the average utility cost on a month to month basis for in summer months and in winter months? Does it change a lot? What's our utility cost?
It's fairly consistent, but it has been going down. Think of this, with the cost of energy going up, our energy bills have actually gone down. They've decreased because one, the boilers which use a lot of gas, those are more efficient now. In fact, instead of them running when they're on full blast, these now come on just a little bit and as needed, and then they cascade. They work back and forth with each other. So they work in a, you don't need to have them on full blast, but you go out there now, they may be running 5 or 6% versus 100%. The new chiller will work in the same way. So as needed, it brings in the cool water to go through the building. By the way, we forget that it's not a blower that we have from that building. All that does is chill water and heat water. In this building, we've got thousands of feet of pipe. I think there's probably about 3 miles of pipe. I think that's what somebody quoted. About 3 miles of pipe in this building that hot and cold water are constantly running through, going to each one of our wall units, our wall heaters, or the big air handlers. And those things are just like a radiator on a car. They fail too. We've had to replace several of those. But we've figured out a way now of cleaning them and getting them in better shape. So we're in pretty good shape with that. But overall, it's an interesting system.
It's kind of like the when you watch movies about the Northeast where they have the hot water radiators that run into the room and the hot water runs through. Same kind of system. It runs throughout our building, and then blowers blow whatever's collected there in those individual rooms. Now, one thing I will point out to you, those of you who go to the sanctuary, let me just say, when you come in winter and say, "Ooh, it's blowing cool air right there," and that little heating, yes, we know. In summer, when you say, "Ooh, that's blowing warm air over there," yes, we know. Can you explain why they're in our sanctuary? You feel all year round, some blowing warm and some blowing cold.
Yeah, that because of the pipe organ, the HVAC system has to modulate in a different way. It needs air conditioning and it needs heat. Too much air conditioning can also bring too much condensation, which means the humidity goes up in the building. If the humidity goes up, the pipes begin to be affected, the pipe organ. With heat, they can shrink. So that's going to change the tune as well. So when Josh or somebody is on the organ, if those pipes get out of tune, we may not notice it as much as he would. But if they're out of tune, they're out of tune. And we control that through the humidity and the temperature. It's not just temperature, it's also humidity. So you need both hot air and cool air coming in to get that right mix. Once that mix is there, it stays that way. That's the only place in this building where we try not to touch anything. We just leave it like that 24/7.
Yep.
So it'll maintain itself. Once people get in, their body heat comes in, and then the next thing you know, the air conditioner has to come on because it's got to maintain, I think it's 57-degree humidity all the time.
So body temperature, if I'm preaching a particularly fiery sermon and everybody's excited and energized and the heat goes up, it automatically adjusts. I meant to ask you, when we talk about the new chiller, we said that our new boilers, we've seen a serious savings. What is going to be the estimated savings that we're going to get from the new chillers? Is it going to be that significant?
Yeah, I believe that Marty told me it was about 35%.
Wow.
Which is huge. Another thing, Mark, that we hadn't considered is that cooling tower pumps water up in there to chill the water that cools down the compressors. We won't need that anymore. And right now we're spending about, I think it was about $2,800 a year for a water bill just to cool that machine down. Also, $230 a month for chemicals for that. So that number gets slashed. The $2,000 across the board disappears. The cost of running that equipment, which is high energy, that's gone now. because this new system is air cooled instead of water cooled, which means it pulls its cooling system out of the air. And the beauty of having that open roof is that now it has access to lots of great air flow coming from above. Also, that open roof with those tall walls will help insulate the sound of it. So we've got that benefit. The cost of running this equipment is now going down, which is great.
So it is really possible to think that this is going to cost us $150,000, but we might see that savings in what, 4 or 5 years, 5 or 6 years. It might actually pay for it. That $150,000 cost.
Yeah, it may take a little longer, but yeah, we're going to see it right away.
Yeah,
which I think is fantastic.
That is.
We're going to start seeing it right away.
Well, since this is a live broadcast, I want to make sure you have an opportunity to ask your questions about the building, about Star Trek, about Mike's hairstyle, about anything that you want to ask about. People don't ask me about my hairstyle. Oh, Steve.
I have a question. Pick me. Okay, this is big picture. And I'm sorry I don't have both of you on the screen right now. It's just because, I could do this, perhaps. I could do this, and then I'd be blocking Mike.
Here, we'll turn it so Mike is the
Who are you asking the question to? Mike,
I don't know. To you both. Here's the thing. What really I've been reading papers and hearing quotes that that up to maybe 30 to 40% of the churches in the United States will close in the next 5 years because they are one boiler or one chiller away or one new roof away from being bankrupt. Now that when I heard it, I thought, theory. That's all out there. What's that really look like? You guys have really scared me. You guys have shown me, wow, just how tight that tolerance is. That if we didn't have those kind of reserves, and let's be honest, most churches have been working on such a shoestring budget over the last few years with such budget tight tolerances. It's not just a matter of being irresponsible. There are things around here that if it goes bad, you can't recover from it. Comment? I'll get out of the way.
Well, I will tell you one thing. It's absolutely true that so many churches, just like so many people, are 1 or 2 crises away. And the ability to be flexible in that crisis is what makes the difference in individual lives and church lives. Almost everyone that comes in that needs help with utilities, the question I ask, and we as pastors ask, is what brought you to this month or these last few months having a difficult time paying your bills? It's always, my car broke. I can't get to work if I don't have a car. That was $1,400 to fix my car. We had to decide, do I not pay utilities? Do I not feed the kids? Do I not make the rent payment? People who are in blessed, privileged positions are able to have 2 or 3 crises at the same time: a death in the family, a car break, and a child get arrested. If you have the ability to withstand financially and with friends in your life those kind of devastating moments, then you are especially blessed. It's the very same thing for churches that have a chiller go down. For most of them, they can't physically come back from that, and they have to borrow money. And churches right now, especially if they've been in decline for the last 4 or 5 years or decade, are very hesitant to borrow money. And even when they are, banks are hesitant to offer churches loans that if they see that the church has been in decline. Once again, what a blessing. Here we are at 25% throughout the year. 25% of this year is behind us, and we've received 27% of what we expect to receive, meaning that in spite of all these costs, we're still right on track for financially to be where we're supposed to be. That's an enormous blessing. Yeah. Mike worked with, there was a church in Rockwood that he went down and consulted on, and that was a perfect example. Rockwood United Methodist Church really struggling financially at the time. What was the issue that they had?
They had a boiler system that was failing, and they had to repair it. They couldn't repair. I mean, they were able to rig it up to make it work a little bit, but ultimately they had to bite the bullet. And you're looking at a cost, and they never did make that decision. I don't think. I think they
Yep.
just kept it in repair. But yeah, it was. They quoted a price of like 100 something thousand as well. They didn't have the money.
Right.
So what do you do?
Yeah. What do you
What do
do?
you do?
Well, Judy's question, is there any money available from the annual conference? Any loans available? The answer is no. Annual conference has to raise its own money from churches. You know, we send a certain amount to the annual conference to pay their staff and to run their ministries. There are no loans available from that direction either. And a perfect example, Lynn and Sini United Methodist Church, predominantly traditionally black African American congregation in downtown Knoxville. With all the violence that's been going on in the east side of downtown Knoxville, they are struggling terribly right now in a variety of ways. The question becomes, what's the commitment of our congregation and other congregations around to help other churches as they're struggling financially? That becomes the issue. And yes, Judy, only banks end up making loans to churches. Every now and then you'll get a church that has a sugar daddy or a sugar mama, somebody really, really wealthy that will front money. But that's rare. And let me ask, let me go ahead and tell you, we don't have any of those. Those of you who are thinking that, well, first, surely we have some of those. No, we do not. There is no one really wealthy person we go to say, please, sir, we need some money. We just don't have that.
So it goes back to pre-planning, and the how many years ago it was that they started to save up for this next big expense.
That's right.
If that hadn't been done, there could have been issues.
That planning goes to our budgeting as well. This might be more information than you want to know, but when I arrived, we had a budget of $1,500,000, and what we've been doing is knowing that we have an older population that is starting to pass away. And even when young families come into the church, they don't give at the same level as those who are in retirement. So we decided 5 years ago we were going to start reducing the budget by 2% every year. It's been our goal, reduced by at least 2% every year. So far, we've done really well. Our budget for this year is $1,413,000. So you can see, even over the last, it's been really 4 years, we've gone from 1.5 to basically 1.4. That's a significant change. And we're going to continue to do that as we see over these next 5 or 6 years, how our membership shifts and changes, how our financial giving shifts and changes. And these kind of dedicated savings accounts are going to be really useful in moments like this. Although I'm hoping after a boiler and a chiller, I'm hoping we're done for a decade. I'd like to think we don't have any more major expenses like that.
Yeah, I would think if something were to happen to the roof, and that's always one of my great fears, is that the insurance company would take care of that. But with all these winds we've had lately, I need to get up and take a look and see how much damage there could have been. Because if we don't take care of it now preventatively, if we miss it and it's up there, then the next thing you know, you got water coming in and no one notices, no one sees, and before long, that water will a slow leak will do more damage than a fast leak, because you don't know about the slow leak, and it starts to rot all the infrastructure that's holding it up. But the roofer told me one day, he said that there was a church that he wouldn't mention, had a slate roof, pretty much like ours. They had to replace it. To tear off the existing slate roof, he said, was $1.2 million. That did not include putting the new slate back on, but $1.2 million just to tear off the existing roof. So that is a huge expense. It makes a boiler look cheap.
I wish you hadn't told me that. But I can tell you, if you want an example of what happens if you don't have that kind of preventative maintenance, go to Magnolia Avenue United Methodist Church right now. We sent a team over to see if we could help do some work. Magnolia Avenue is a church in a part of town that's in decline in Knoxville, and they've had extensive roof problems that have been unaddressed for the last 20, 25 years, and now the walls are caving in and they have extensive damage, and Tiffany stained glass windows and beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And parts of the building are uninhabitable now and falling in. and they actually got a cost. It would cost $750,000 to just bulldoze the building. And so they decided to try to reinvest in it. And now it's in that same crisis of, for years and years, you let preventative maintenance go, you're going to pay for it one way or the other.
And who wants to donate to bulldozing the church?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
What benefit is that outside getting rid of the building?
Right.
It's a lot of money.
And who wants to buy a church when it's going to cost that much to renovate?
Exactly.
Okay, I'm really depressed now, guys. Thanks, thanks a lot. So continuing on that path of depression and sadness, I'm thinking a lot right now about mortality. Most of folks know that by now that my father passed away just a couple of weeks ago, and the funeral service is Saturday, and I'm just, kind of processing and thinking through all these kinds of things. And I am grateful beyond measure that that my parents were members of the church for years and years. They were participants, more or less, off and on. They were donors, more or less, off and on. And because of our life in the church right now, I can come and I can trust that a beautiful, beautiful service will be held Saturday. I know it, and I don't have to worry about that. And it is a blessing beyond measure. And I guess what I'm wondering about is, if a church means that much to me, if a church can offer that much to me, and I know we're supposed to be thinking about what we're offering to the church, but when the church can give back to me in those kinds of ways that are just blessings absolutely beyond measure, I think it makes me think more about how we handle our end-of-life finances, bequests, gifts of stock. I know that that's a big thing for congregations, is that when you have made a boatload of money off of stock, and you don't want to pay the tax on it, you donate it to a nonprofit, and then, you get the tax write-off from the gift, but you also don't have to pay the tax. Anyway, everybody wins in a certain sense. And I just want to, this is my own personal time here, guys, but I really, really would like everybody to think seriously about leaving the church in your will, because this is an amazing story, what you've just told us, that we were ready for this in a sense. And we need to be continually ready for these kinds of things. Yes? No? What do you think, guys?
Yes. Not only that, I will point out that we have actually in place on June 12th, I had to look up the date. On June 12th, we're going to have Paul Bowman, the president of the Holston Conference Foundation, to come and speak to our congregation during the Sunday school hour about wills and bequests and all those financial instruments like you were talking about, where you can donate to the congregation or to a ministry of your choice and get tax benefits from it, how to set up a trust for the church. So yeah, all those are happening. That's on Sunday, June 12th during the Sunday school hour. It's a great, if you have questions for someone who has all of those kind of answers, that would be the time to come and talk to Paul. He's a really good guy and very trustworthy. I see that Lou Ann asks a question. How are trustees related to this financial effort? Well, the trustees are the ones in charge of spending the money. That's how they're related. The finance committee and the leadership of the church puts out the word that we are in particular needs or to pursue our stewardship campaigns every year. The trustees are the group that simply take care of the physical plant of the building. And so they look and see, are we doing the preventative maintenance? Are we changing the air filters? Are we doing all that needs to happen to keep it up? In fact, a perfect example for those of you who go into the sanctuary, we just had a water leak on one of the transepts where all the pews are, that did some damage on our plaster. And what was the process of repairing that, Mike?
We first had to identify the leak, and we found that it was caused by flashing above the window. Again, a maintenance issue that you were not aware of. I wasn't aware of because I'm not usually up 30 feet up looking at things. But it was there. Once that was repaired, we called the roofer in. He was able to fix it only for $200 or $300, less than $300. I looked up there and I realized I couldn't fix it. I just couldn't do it. But he's the roofing guy. He's the guy with all the secrets and knows how to do it. Anyway, once we found that, we discovered that it had been a leak that had taken place over time and popped out a lot of that plaster. So we went through not only looking for and removing the bad plaster, but also tapping the wall and listening for hollow sounds so we could get it all out now. We didn't want to repair this twice. So once the leak was fixed, and it was fixed, then we took all the plaster out, and it was a mess for a while. Repaired it all, and then repainted everything. So got it all back to normal.
Oh, it looks. I challenge you, go up into that transept when you're here in the church. You can't tell that they've done any repairs. It was an excellent job. Mike and his team are really great. Mike and Sam and Dave and Stephen, they really are excellent at what they do. We're really blessed to have them. Absolutely.
And that ended up costing probably about $500 at the end of the day. If we had called that in, that would have been about a $7,000 to $8,000 repair. So if we can do it ourselves, we sure will. If we can't, we just can't. There are things you can do, and there are things you can't do.
It kind of, I'll be honest, it kind of surprised me when you said, I just couldn't do that roofing. I thought, it's bad if Mike doesn't do it. He is in the best sense of that word, a penny pincher when it comes to, I can do that. We can figure this out. We can do that. So that's nice about having someone as as tight-fisted as myself.
I wanted to see if we could repair and rebuild this chiller and make it last. But I got some properties in which they always the HVAC guys would come in and say, you need a new unit. And I'd say, if my car breaks down, I don't necessarily need a new car. I need to repair what's there. So that's my mentality, is fix what you can, because the rest of it is still good. It may be old, but if it still works, let it continue to work. So I tried to make this happen.
I believe it.
But you know what? Some things you can do and some things you can't. So
that would be pretty much our church philosophy about people too. There's always hope. There's always an opportunity for people to change. Just because one part of your life is broken doesn't mean the whole thing is broken.
That's right. You
can be repaired just as much as the chiller can. So
and when it can't, you replace it.
Haven't done that in a while.
No.
All right. Well, any other questions that you all have? I don't see any popping up.
Yeah, this has been remarkable, guys. I've enjoyed this conversation and probably gotten more out of it than many of. I don't know. All of these are great. I guess I can't really say that, but all of these are so rich and so great. Mike, dude, you're amazing. And I have to ask you, have you gotten that drone yet?
Yes, I did.
And it's shaped like I wanted you to know that they're now making drones that are shaped like the USS Enterprise.
Really?
No, not really.
He's gone now. He's going to look.
No, I didn't know that.
It's a market opportunity, I think. But yeah, so you're drone worthy now, so you can go around poking around on the roof.
Not good at it though. Because I haven't spent the time on it, and it's been so windy.
Oh gosh, so. Yeah. Well, we'll have to chat. I'm going to be down in Oak Ridge this weekend, so I'll get to see you. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, everybody, take away from this what you will. I take away quite a bit. I take away that the fact that thank God for the faithfulness and the smartness at which the trustees and the finance committee have managed the finances over the years, so that we could bear a blow like this. I take away from it the fact that, wow, it's not just that, oh, we need to be comfortable, and we don't want to sweat any in our worship services. It's really, it's a world of hurt if we don't do it, if we don't maintain. And then the other thing is just to be just so grateful. And I'm going to be looking at my my documents, my will, to make sure that I got to be honest, guys. I'm not saying this because I work at the church or because I have worked at the church or anything like that. I'm saying this because this is my church, and I will be leaving behind whatever money I have when I die. It's going to go to First United Methodist Church. It's not going to go anywhere else. I mean, it might go a few other places, but this is my church, and this is the church that has nurtured me all of my life and given me gifts beyond measure. And I just think it's incredibly important now, for us all to think about how we are going to make sure that this church maintains and continues its vital ministry and connections for human beings on into the future, way past when I'm gone. So, yeah.
I saw that Bill is asking, will the drone check our roof condition? Are you going to use a drone to check roof condition?
Yeah, we've already had a engineer come out who mapped the entire roof.
That's
cool. But he won't let me have the video, which is a drag. So I decided to ask for a drone for Christmas that's got a nice camera on it. So once I get up there and learn to do it, then I'll be able to map it, and I won't share my video either. he doesn't share his, I won't share mine.
If you see a little version of the USS Enterprise floating around the church and scanning it, it's not a replay of, what was the name of that episode, Mike, where the guy they beamed the guy from the Air Force jet back into the plane, into the ship.
Yesterday is tomorrow.
I'm sorry?
Yesterday is tomorrow.
Yesterday is tomorrow. Yep. And that was season what?
First season.
First season. That's what I thought. Yeah. All right. Well.
Well, that's not a real. I don't think I should be that proud of this information.
You think I'm kidding? You think I'm kidding when I say ask him anything? It's like me with Gilligan's Island. Ask the man anything.
Oh, Gilligan's Island?
I'm a huge Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's.
Harold Hecuba?
Of course.
Harold Hecuba. Yes. Harold Hecuba. Okay, folks, enough of that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all of you, for sticking with us and being part of this, incredible, fascinating conversation. Thanks, guys, for enlightening us so much. And we'll see you next week. We got a special guest next week. As if Mike was not a special guest, we have a special guest. The Reverend Troy Forrester is scheduled to be part of this conversation, and Mark and Troy are going to talk about preaching, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I kind of like Troy. I kind of gather that he's fairly well liked in the congregation too. So yeah. All right. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.